오마시모 아벤 레벨로 조바시모 나리에가 강가 동적으로 늘어리서.
It is said that the ground of the view is Mahamudra, the path of the view is the middle way, and the fruition of the view is the great perfection, Dzogchen, but all of them are of one identity. Rinpoche was a great scholar, a great pandita, who could expound upon these topics very elaborately, in the great detail about the view according to ground, path and fruition, but he will instead give the teaching the simple approach. It's called the Kusulu approach, the Simple Meditator, which is combining all three great views into one and transmitting them in a very simple way, just as was taught yesterday. And he will do so by means of two aspects, shamatha and vipassana, stillness and insight. Because all the Buddha's teachings, from the level of the Shravakas all the way up to the great perfection, can be expounded by means of these two aspects, shamatha and vipassana. The words of the Buddhas are profound and extensive, and they are authentic, reliable. The statements by the followers, the great Bodhisattvas, are also authentic, and the pith instructions combining or condensing all these words of the Buddhas and the statements of great masters into simple instructions are also authentic. And when we practice, when we take the teachings to heart and try to apply them, we do so by combining these threefold authenticity. Within Buddhism, there is enough details of teachings. So if we would take the scholarly approach, then we could occupy ourselves for the rest of this life, no problem. But because the great bodhisattvas, the noble beings, condensed the Buddha's words into statements, and our lineage of gurus, and the lineage gurus and Rinpoche's own root teachers, condensed them even further to some pithy instructions. All the teachings can be condensed into just 3 words. In fact, into just 2 sentences. But sorry, there are 3. Don't resolve the teachings, resolve your mind. When you resolve your mind, it is knowing one that liberates all. The last sentence, once you resolve your mind, the root of mind, it is knowing one that frees all. So what does it mean? Knowing one thing liberates everything. It is about our essence and expression. And a general word for this essence in all the vehicles of Buddhism is Buddha nature, enlightened essence. Buddha nature is a Sugata essence. Sugata means having gone blissfully or to the happy state, in other words, all the awakened ones. And essence, of course, is essence, just like the essence of milk is butter. He said the essence is the Buddha nature, self-existing wakefulness, Rangjung Yeshen. It's self-existing in the sense that it's not made, created, or come about in any way by anyone. But primordially, it has the nature of knowing, a cognizant quality, that is called wakefulness, Yeshe. And this nature is present in everyone. It is present everywhere, all pervasive, like the sunlight pervades the sky. But its expression is what is called dualistic mind. Its essence is the Buddha nature. Its expression is the thinking, the dualistic mind of all beings. This Buddha nature is comprised of three aspects, three Vajras, the Vajra body, Vajra speech, and Vajra mind. In the sense that the empty essence is the Vajra body, unceasing nature is the Vajra speech, and the unmistaken functioning is the Vajra mind. In this way, the three Vajras are embodied within the Buddha nature. Essence, nature, and function. Essence means primordially empty. Nature here means primordially cognizant. And function means that these two aspects, empty and being cognizant, are indivisible. Failing to recognize our own nature as it is, the inherent qualities of the three Vajras are obscured by our present body, speech, and mind, which are all transient, fleeting, changing. The source, the real origin of the Dhammakaya Buddhas, the Sambhogakaya Buddhas of the five families, and the Nimanakaya Buddhas, like the 1,000 fully awakened ones of this aeon, the very source of all of these is the Buddha nature. When you look towards your own mind and you don't see it as a thing, it is just empty, just like space. The very identity of it is like space. That is what is called empty essence, the Dhammakaya. But while being empty, in essence, isn't there a natural quality of being able to know, to cognize, to be conscious? Don't we all have that? That is what is called the Sambhogakaya of all the awakened ones. The indivisibility of the empty and cognizant qualities is what is called or named the Nimanakaya of all Buddhas. But in actuality, these three kayas are present as the nature of our own mind. In order to symbolize that, to point towards this nature, externally different figures are painted and made and said, this is Sambhogakaya, this is Dhammakaya, this is Nimanakaya, and so forth. We can imagining them and meditate upon them and so forth. But all these are just methods in order to realize the nature within. That was the upaya or method. The knowledge aspect is when we hear teaching like, I supplicate the Dhammakaya essence of my own mind. We need to attain enlightenment, the Buddhahood, by combining knowledge and method, prajna and upaya. For example, we hear that the Buddhism is comprised of two sections, the extensive sutra teachings and the profound tantric teachings. To the sutra system, the method is compassion, the knowledge aspect is emptiness, and by unifying emptiness and compassion, prajna and upaya, we arrive at perfect awakening. In Vajrayana, the method aspect is called development stage, while the knowledge aspect is called completion stage. So by unifying, by combining development stage and completion stage, we arrive at perfect enlightenment called the unified level of Vajradhara, Vajra holder. According to the system of Mahamudra, the ground of the view, there are two aspects called the means and liberation. The path of means, which is the 6 doctrines of Naropa, and the path of liberation, which is the view of Mahamudra itself. By unifying the path of means and the path of liberation, we attain perfect enlightenment. So the path of the view, the great middle way, Madhyamika, the method is called the relative truth, while the knowledge aspect is ultimate truth. By unifying relative and ultimate, we arrive at the perfect and true enlightenment. According to the fruition of the view, Dzogchen, the great perfection, there are two aspects also called the primordial pure essence, which is the knowledge aspect, combined with the spontaneously present nature, the method aspect. By unifying these two, we arrive at perfect enlightenment. As taking an ordinary example, to make an aeroplane that can fly, first we need a skilled engineer who knows how to make the aeroplane. That is the knowledge aspect, the know-how. But also we need the means, the methods, which is all the parts of the aeroplane. Without that, just knowing how to put an aeroplane together is not enough to fly. But once you have the skilled person and all the components, then they can be put together and you can fly in the aeroplane. That is called unifying means and knowledge. The perfect Buddha, he said that knowledge devoid of means and means devoid of knowledge should always be known as an error, therefore never separate the two. Since we are speaking about this, why not include Anuyoga as well? Anuyoga, the method aspect, is the yogic exercises based on the channels and energies, while the knowledge aspect is to embrace those practices with the correct, true view. So in other words, by unifying means and knowledge, we can attain complete enlightenment. So in this way, there are different levels of teachings, different ways which are out of great compassion and skillful means given by a fully enlightened one in order to suit the different dispositions and capabilities of different people, given the teaching according to with what is needed by the individual. So when people hear these different teachings, we tend to identify with a certain approach. We say, I am a Mahamudra practitioner, or I follow the middle way, or I'm a Dzogchen practitioner, and so forth. We cannot really be blamed for doing so. There are different ways of traveling to Bodh Gaya. The destination, however, is just one and the same. So what Rinpoche would like to teach us here is the view of Mahamudra, Dzogchen and Madhyamika taught as one. At present, the Buddha nature, the essence, and our thinking, which is its expression, coexist.
It's
like water mixed with milk, or water in the milk. And now, what we need to learn is how to differentiate, how to distinguish or separate the two, essence and expression. So first we get those two words, essence and expression. Also understand this sentence. Becoming face to face with the Buddha nature is called the unity of being empty and cognizant with a core of awareness.
심지인 그 서대신 그 자른데 공사를 송주 마르는 거지 송아리 있어.
But the expression, the thinking that takes place as the mind of all sentient beings is called the unity of being empty and cognizant with a core of unawareness.
대신 행보와 공사를 송주리 심지인 성아 공사를 송주리 있어.
In this way, Buddha nature in itself is the unity of being empty and cognizant, and the dualistic mind of an unenlightened being is also the unity of being empty and cognizant.
로베 시주의가 생리가 있어.
But we don't have two minds.
하 보이식다 하 마보이식이 요소는 있어.
It's only that there is sometimes knowing or not knowing.
공사를 송주 때하 보이차들라. 되네 공사를 송주 르병이 보이기 실례 있어.
So knowing the nature which is empty and cognizant is called being endowed with the core of awareness. The dualistic mind of any ordinary person is empty and cognizant, but there is no acknowledging of that. There is no knowing of our own nature, so that is called endowed with a core of unawareness.
이제 말은 심지에 있어.
In short, when knowing, you are Buddha. When not knowing, you are a sentient being.
흙스를 하고 왔대. 란종이시 랑을 왔대. 랑을 왔대. 르병이 실례 있어.
So knowing here means recognizing our nature as being self-existing wakefulness.
랑을 왔대. 랑고 마신데 로를 풀어보는 비송아 있어.
Failing to recognize what our nature is, we fall under the power of temporary delusion.
이제 까는다고 이 시라 출발이와 말이었어.
Our ground of basic nature, which is primordially pure wakefulness, is in itself unmistaken, without delusion.
로를 짰니? 되네. 랑고 마시를 출발하는 소송을 했어.
But we're not recognizing our own nature, then there's temporary delusion taking place as its expression.
출발, 서로한테 로를 말이었어.
So delusion is temporary, momentary.
대신 뭐 얘는 예단이 있어.
While Buddha nature in itself is primordially pure.
그러나 님은 뭐라고 시 그런 수경 맞이와 안녕 님은 뭐라고 때 보는 거 있어.
Understand that our basic nature is like the sun in the sky, in itself unobscured.
로는 남도인데 찜바라고 소송을 했어.
But temporary obscurations are like sudden clouds appearing in the sky.
근데 그게 서원에 아따리 찜바한테 그랬더니 니마 이걸 노래했어.
For someone standing on the ground, doesn't it look like the sun is obscured by the clouds?
그 때문에 내가 되니 나는 그런 거 봐. 이 발도 되니 니마 저거야 말이었어.
But if you fly above the clouds, as long as the sun is in the sky, is it ever obscured?
산지에서 뭔가 되나고 생각했어.
The state of mind of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is like being above the clouds.
그러니까 심지 설내 사이를 내나 아떼에 되나 되니 때문에 젊은 놓았어.
But ordinary beings are like standing on the ground. It seems obscured.
찜바도 로로 말이야.
But these clouds are only temporary. The word temporary is the opposite of intrinsic. And in this way, our habitual tendencies, our confusion, our disturbing emotions, our dualistic thinking, all of that is just temporary. They therefore can be cleared away. But our nature is primordially pure. It's pure by nature. It is like an utterly clear sky without any clouds to cover it whatsoever. So when we try to recognize that, when we try to use a way to come to know our own nature, that is what is called the path. And when, by practicing and training in the path, every single trace of obscuration is totally removed, then there is nothing left that can cover or obscure the sunlight, the sunlit sky. And in that way, this is called fruition, but that fruition is a natural, inherent quality, not something new. So what we need to do now is to clear away the empty and cognizant state of mind endowed with unawareness. And we can do so through some method or through the knowledge aspect. First about the method, to remove the clouds by using some method to do so. It's like farming. When you need to sow the field, first you cultivate the ground. Cultivating the ground, making it supple and so forth, that is what is the preliminaries the mantra is all about. Then when our field is fertile and just ready to be planted, then the planting of the seeds for the crop, that is the receiving of the four empowerments. That is called purifying, cultivating our nature and planting the seeds. Then there is also removing the hindrances for the crop to grow. Like making rituals to protect against hailstorm and frost and so forth. After that, after planting the seeds, they need to be helped to grow by nurturing them. There are practices to nurture, which are the development stage and so forth. Then there are the practices of removing hindrances, like protecting against blight and frost, hailstorms. And there are practices for enhancing, bringing forth enhancement, which is like putting on fertilizer and so forth. In this way there are 5 aspects to the path: purifying our being, planting the seeds, nurturing, removing hindrances, and bringing forth enhancement. So, among the two, means and knowledge, these 5 aspects are mainly about using methods, means. When emphasizing the knowledge aspect, it is said, know your own nature, your Buddha nature. Recognize it. What covers up our Buddha nature, the natural face of our innate nature, is our own thinking. And thinking in Tibetan is called Nam Tok. Literally, it means conceptualizing objects. Nam, the objects, objects of the 5 senses, and Tokwa means to form concepts about them. That activity obscures the Buddha nature, and that activity needs to be brought to an end. It is said that unless conceptual thinking is exhausted, brought to an end, there is no complete enlightenment. And why is that said? It's because the forms that we conceptualize about are actually the world, the realm, the 6 realms. And the conceptualizing, the thinking, is what is called the ignorant sentient being. So as long as that is kept up and perpetuated, samsara and sentient beings will continue to exist. The moment conceptual thinking ceases, there's no more a place to go or someone to go there. Because dualistic fixation is absent. So to do that, for that to happen, we need to recognize the Buddha nature. Without recognizing the Buddha nature, there is no way to be free from dualistic fixation. The great equanimity of all awakened ones means that duality has to become equality. And this oneness must be free from basis, free from root, obliterated as well. That is like ceasing to plant the seeds for further samsara, and we're not planting the seeds by conceptual thinking, then the samsaric state, the crop cannot grow forth either. This way, samsaric existence is brought to an end, the root is cut. To make this extremely simple now, the world is made out of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and space. None of these 5 elements have the capacity to know, to cognize, to perceive. Human bodies and bodies of other beings are made out of the minor elements, which is flesh, blood, warmth, breath, and the vacuities in the body. But none of these 5 minor elements have the capacity to perceive or experience. So what is it that experiences? What is it that knows or feels? Only mind, nothing other. This empty, cognizant mind, if that wasn't there, this world would be utterly empty, no experience of anything. When this empty, cognizant quality, that which knows and perceives, fails to recognize itself, what it is, it strays into fixating in a dualistic way. Just like when the moon is reflected on the surface of water, there are 2 moons. But that reflection is only a reflection. When the water disappears, the manifestation, the expression dissolves back into the ground. In the same way, the thinking, the dualistic mind of all beings, is just an expression, while the Buddha nature is its source, the essence. When seeing the essence, it's like when recognizing the essence, the expression dissolves back into the ground. Just like when the water is poured out, the reflection does not remain. It has nowhere to remain. The duality vanishes. And we have gone through so many experiences, all different kinds, some incredibly full of incredible great misery, life after life, again being reborn, dying, being reborn, dying. And he said that the amount of molten metal, red hot liquid metal that each single sentient being has drunken in the hells is equal to the endless ocean. This is only because of not recognizing our essence and straying after the expression. And if we continue to do so in the future, if we don't recognize our essence now, it will just go on endlessly in the same way. So the Buddha said, to look away is samsara, to look towards is nirvana. The difference between samsara and nirvana is only looking away, looking there, or looking towards, looking here. So looking away is samsara, meaning when the mind focuses away from itself towards external objects through the senses, and again grasps and fixates, links itself to objects, that goes on, this delusion. And dancing about, this drama has gone on for a long time. We have been like children chasing rainbows. A rainbow appears, and the child gets fascinated, wants to catch it. Our worldly activity only finishes the moment we expire. All these aims are like ripples on water. But right now we have a great chance. We have a precious human body, we have a Buddha nature, and we can meet with the right circumstance, a spiritual teacher. These 3, they have met together right now.
Then should metro but same karma. Should do me new karma some with the
But although these conditions are present, the people who don't try to realize their nature, who don't practice the Dharma, are as many as the stars in the nighttime, while those who do are as rare as the stars in the morning. So the people who recognize the true, correct view, who train in the meditation, and who resolve through the conduct are extremely few. Only a few. Our Buddha nature itself is unfabricated naturalness. So in training in that, we train by means of unfabricated naturalness. And when attaining the fruition, the final result, that also is attained through unfabricated naturalness. There is two additional points here, clearing hindrances and enhancing. And it is said about these, besides the practices of gathering and accumulations and purifying obturations, and depending upon the blessings of a realized master, depend on other methods should be known as delusion. What methods are being taught here? Devotion to enlightened beings above, compassion for unenlightened beings, all sentient beings, our mothers, below. These are very important. Both are love. Devotion to enlightened beings, the three jewels, that is love. And that devotion should be as deep felt, as sincere, so that our tears come to our eyes, our hairs and our body stands on end, and it feels like overwhelming. So what does devotion mean here? It's out of appreciation that the jewel, the wish-fulfilling jewel present in myself has now been planted in the palm of my hand. Otherwise I would have been totally lost without knowing this essence. I would just go on through endless samsaric existence. So to what do I owe this kindness? It's only from my teacher and the lineage of the gurus. So to that kind of appreciation, that is devotion. Compassion for other beings is also out of appreciation, but it is out of seeing that sentient beings do all possess this enlightened essence, and yet they are unaware of that, not knowing the precious wish-fulfilling jewel within themselves. They just totally ignore that their very nature, and out of confusion and disturbing emotions go from one miserable samsaric state to another endlessly throughout past life, and without realizing it, they'll just go on and on endlessly like that into the future. How sad, how terrible. If we think of that, can we help feeling saddened? If we really take that to heart. If all beings did not have an enlightened nature, then of course there's nothing to do. But they do possess that. And while having such a nature, still out of ignorance and delusion, they roam throughout samsaric existence. If we really think of that, can we help feeling saddened? And this kind of feeling, compassion, we should bring forth in our minds, not just as mere platitude or as lip service. Because in the moment of love, the empty essence dawns nakedly. This is the path, the unerring path of unity. So what is this unerring path of unity? It is the recognition of our nature as being the unity of empty awareness and cognizance. And not just as mere platitude of lip service, just saying, Guru, I pray to you, or poor sentient beings, just the words, that doesn't help anything. But when we really look and appreciate what is true, sincerely, from the core of our heart, then that feeling becomes overwhelming, almost unbearable. And in that moment of strong love, that is the unerring path, meaning there's only Buddha nature. It cannot be missed or it cannot slip away in any way whatsoever. This is how all the great practitioners of the past attained enlightenment in that same lifetime, was by following the universal panacea of devotion. That is how the simple meditator practices. Otherwise, we can argue and put forth a lot of what we call defending one position, attacking another, and slapping our hands, and spend our whole life like that. It is, of course, important. It's a way to establish what is true and to reject what is not true. So there are two approaches: the extensive, elaborate approach of the scholar and the profound approach of the meditator, the simple meditator. If you have great intelligence, great diligence, then of course one is able to follow the approach of a great scholar who both can gain personal accomplishment and at the same time be someone in whom others can gain faith. And in this way perfect fully the welfare of both self and others. But do we have that time? Isn't life short? Aren't there many different diseases? We don't really have that free time in this life. The rest of our life here is no longer than the tail of a sheep. It will quickly fly by. So if we estimate how much time we have left, isn't it better to just leave your mind without any fabrication? That which he is the present mind, which you made that clear yesterday. Without that hearing, there is no present mind. Then we are a corpse. But there is present mind. So don't correct that. Don't fabricate it. Your present wakefulness, leave it as it is. Not the previous state of mind or the next one, but the present one. So what does without fabrication mean? It means don't reach out, don't focus inwardly, don't place it anywhere in between. In that moment we see that there's no thing to see. And at the same time the five senses are vivid and wide open. Whatever is experienced, right? We say recognize, but actually there's not a thing to be recognized. You may think, I should recognize it, but I don't get it, I don't see a thing. We don't have to do like that. Any act of recognizing is just another thought. It says, sustain the view which is without recognizing something. Like this, is there anything here in space to recognize?
남파를 가리는 무슨 말이야?
How can you identify or pinpoint
남파
space?
통과해서 하는 남돌이야.
The moment you think space is empty, that's just a thought.
남파 통과해야 마사와지 내 욕다.
So just leave space being empty without having to think it is. Like this.
그게 된다는 통과야.
Then that is the real, true emptiness.
그러나 파실 나의 선통과이 좀 파치의 선통과이 싸우기가 그때 또 다른 통과 말이.
Most people, when they hear the teacher say mind is empty, then they say to think the teacher says mind is empty. But thinking that is not the empty mind.
성도 수지할 통과야.
That is a mind-made emptiness.
그러나 통과가 애인사만 매인사만 이게 가지고
Truly, we don't have to think it is or it isn't empty. Just give up that. What we need to see is the true emptiness, our ultimate state. A made up or thought up emptiness doesn't help. Would it help to sit and think, I'm enlightened, I'm a Buddha? Do you become a Buddha through that? It's like that. The mind is empty. The mind is empty. It's just a thought. Only our own thinking obscures the essence. So when the past thought has ceased, future thought has not arisen, and you let go of the present thought. Then it's just the empty essence itself, in itself. Without you having to think, it is the empty essence in itself. Just let the past thought having ceased, the future thought hasn't arisen yet. Then you don't have to check or evaluate, because that present moment of wakefulness is empty in essence, and at the same time there's self-existing or natural knowing. There's a vivid feeling of being awake, right? That's the cognizance. The way to train this is throughout all daily life activities. Traditionally said that there are the four aspects of daily life, which is sitting, moving about, eating, and lying down. And no matter what situation you find yourself in, again and again recognize this empty wakefulness. And there is no point in your life where you cannot do that. Even while eating, you eat a little and then recognize, then continue eating, again recognize. You are also allowed to recognize the empty wakefulness when you go on the toilet. There's no rule here as this is when you should recognize and this is when you shouldn't. And unless we train in this way, we can never really grow used to it. So therefore it is said, not meditating, but grow used to it. Growing used to is like learning by heart. Like this. There's a short prayer to Dhammasambhava, Srimati learned by heart when he was small. Listen here. He doesn't have to think twice. Automatic. So the non-distraction in the view needs to become automatic. Not an act of meditating, but also not being distracted, not forgetting. Without meditating means it's by itself empty and awake. Not meditating, but stable in itself. That is what is meant by becoming used to it. Innate stability. So even though this only lasts very short right now, repeat it many times.
안돼 지금 여행 좋나? 아빠 당신 신거든요. 람pe 따로 있어요.
Once you forget, once you get distracted, the path to complete enlightenment stops right there.
여행을 나오면 잡아요.
It said, on the path of distraction, Mara lies in ambush.
늘 많을 거예요.
And that Mara, demon, is ignorance, unawareness.
항상 말하고 하는
We immediately stray into unawareness.
끝나는 게 남의 사람들을 통해 좋아. 평소 들어오는데 찍 사회적인 저로서 지식의 충성수네 소수 가세를 내려 있어요.
So we need to be really careful here. We need to be like a small bird. The small bird that flies around has a lot of enemies because the bigger birds will eat it. Because the bigger birds live off killing and eating smaller birds.
평소 속인 게 봐도 사람이 더 같대. Therefore,
small birds, try and look at them and see how they are always scared of their life. Even one moment they have to look here and there to see if somebody's coming and kill them. Not because they are happy that they move their head. They are afraid to get killed. So, when we don't train in recognizing, when we just give in to distraction, getting carried away, that moment the life force of liberation is killed right there, if we're not careful. Another example. While he's working or doing something, we are talking. While talking, can recognize again and again. That's how to train. Short moment, many times. If you think, now this is the meditation session, now I will train, and now I finish the meditation session, now forget about meditating, then you'll never get used to it. Some people think, I cannot practice here. This is so noisy. People are talking. I want to be up there in the retreat, in the hermitage. Then I can practice. But isn't that complete nonsense? Because practicing here, you only need a few seconds. Of course, you cannot be blamed for feeling like that, because right now we have not what is called established the natural state. But once we grow used to it, we will be like somebody waving a knife through midair. Does space get cut or hurt? That is what is meant by establishing or attaining stability in the natural state. Is like this sky being unhurt by a slash of a knife. We are totally unharmed by any distraction or noise, business. Right now, not having established the natural state is like holding a little bit of water in the hand. Our meditation practice is like that, and we are so afraid that we may spill it out if we don't hold it really still. But leave your view, the view of our essence, like space. There's nothing that limits space in any direction. It's just wide open, vast, immense. Leave your practice like that. Once you establish the natural state, wherever you go, the sun of happiness shines. And there's no disharmony, no matter whom you're with. Rinpoche has been using a lot of high words, bragging, but from the words of a simple person, intelligent people can still learn something. At the end of your practice, always make the wish that the good of this may it be shared with all beings, may it benefit them. First, the correct motivation is I will train this in order to benefit all beings. Then we do some spiritual practice, either conditioned or unconditioned, but at the end, always share it with others. Share it for the welfare of others. Then these three are the very foundation of all Buddhist practice.